And welcome to the show. I am so excited to get to know you today and get to spend some time with you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so thrilled. I need you to know, and I need everybody to know that after so long of being asked, like, can you have Ann Wilson on the show? Can you sit down with Ann and have a conversation? I'm so excited that we get to do that today. You are probably one of the most asked for guests that I've ever had. And so I'm just so honored to get to spend time with you. And I'm so excited about your new book that's releasing called My Jesus. It's going to be so good. I cannot wait to read the whole thing myself, but I'm so excited we get to just chat a little bit about it today. Yes. You have had quite a few years. Like the last couple of years have been so crazy for you. First of all, congrats on becoming K-Love's Female Artist of the Year. That's so exciting.
I'm so honored. I was not expecting that. So thank you.
I am so thrilled for you. And in the new book, My Jesus, it tells us just the remarkable story that God wrote after the loss of your brother. And it was sort of out of that season that My Jesus came. And I would love to hear, what was that journey like for you in deciding to write your story down? That was a very kind thing of you to do for us, but I can only imagine how hard that book was to write. And so I just would love to hear about that journey.
Yeah. Writing the book was definitely really hard. I decided to write My Jesus, the book, after the song started to really make an impact in the world.
Yeah.
I started to receive a lot of messages about, people's lives being forever changed by the song, and people being freed from addiction and sin and suffering and all sorts of things. And I felt like, I was like, okay, the Lord's definitely doing something through the story of this song. It's more than just a song. It's a story. It's a background of my life in the past 5 years or whatever. And I started to see how even just the title, My Jesus, and how the song came about was a direct correlation to my past and what God had done in my childhood and bringing me up to where I am today. So I felt like the story needed to be told in such detail. I can do in interviews like this and podcasts and whatever, I can tell the story, but I can't go into depth. And so I can't tell every single detail of what God did and every miracle he performed. So I felt like it was super important that I wrote this book so that I could share the story of, this song, but then more importantly of my life and what God's done in my life. So it was actually really healing. I was going through counseling last fall when I wrote the book, the same time I was writing the book, and I was walking through the grief cycle of losing my brother. And so it was actually God's perfect timing, because through that, I was able to really receive a lot of healing from writing this book. It was hard. I had to go back into the depths of my memories and pull out things. And, I had to talk to my brother's friends about him and family members and really dive into our past and our memories together. And so it was really hard, but it was also very healing for me. And I think also just to relive some of those incredible moments that God did in my life, was super healing for me. So it was difficult, but I'm so grateful that we did it. I wrote it with actually my French teacher from high school. Is so
How
funny.
cool.
From Kentucky. And so she decided that she wanted to help me write this book, and we wrote it together. And it was a really cool journey. So
that's incredible. I love that. It was really cool as I was preparing to talk to you, and I was listening to one of your albums actually in the airport last weekend when I was traveling to speak. And I was listening to My Jesus, and the coolest thing happened. So I taught last weekend on discipleship, and one of the passages I taught on was the Great Commission. And so I'm steeped in this passage for, I don't know, last 2 months getting ready to speak at this conference. And then I was listening to My Jesus, and I was like, man, what an incredible proclamation of the Great Commission, right? Go and tell the good news of the gospel. Let me tell you about my Jesus. And I just love how the Lord has given you that opportunity, not only to write the song and that be a way of living out the Great Commission in your own life, but also giving all of your listeners the opportunity to do the same as they proclaim that song. I just think it's the coolest thing. So as I was listening and preparing, it was just a really cool moment. I also love, one of my very favorite songs of yours is No Place Like Home. I remember the first time I listened to it, I just weepy cried. It is the sweetest song, and I love songs that just take us on a journey, and you do that so beautifully in that song. talking about your relationship with your brother. I just wonder, because I know the same thing happens with writing, right? When we share our writing and people bring their stories to our books or our songs. What has it been like to watch that song speak into the lives of your listeners?
It's been amazing. Actually, what's cool about that song is that we wrote that song the day we wrote My Jesus.
Wow.
Jesus, and we wrote it in 15 minutes. So it was a God song for sure. There's some songs that you write and they just like come from the Lord and they're like that. And every song is from him, but the fast songs are just really cool to be a part of. And it's been really cool to watch how that song has impacted people's lives. I had a girl come to my table the other day. I was signing autographs and she told me that she lost her brother in a car accident. I think actually just maybe a month ago or 2 months ago, super recent. And that song has helped her so much get through the loss of her brother. It's moments like that are just so sweet. Being able to look and see how, not only did that song bring me healing, that song, God wrote that story. It's me and my brother, our memories together, but that song is helping other people get through their loss with their brothers and their loved ones. And so it's really cool to see how God uses our stories like that, and then we put them into songs, and then he uses those songs to reach other people. So that's definitely my favorite song I've ever written and been a part of, and it's really special to me. So I love getting to sing it on tour, and people is awesome.
I love it. Well, I loved reading a little bit about the story of the season when you sensed God calling you to write and sing music, and sort of that journey for you. I would love for you to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so there's a lot to it, but basically, I grew up wanting to be an astronaut and work for NASA. I had like this big passion to go to space and be an astronaut. And so I say that because I had no passion to do music or singing for a career or anything like that. I grew up on Christian music. My brother kind of raised me on country music, so I had like a mix of both. But I listened to music in the car and at church, and that's it. Like I did not sing. I did not have any passion for it. And then my brother passed away in June of 2017. And that was actually the moment that my whole music journey started. And so I sang at my brother's funeral for the first time in front of anyone. I had never sang in front of anyone before. I played piano at that time in my life, took piano lessons, classical piano, but that was it. And I started to go through this season of worshiping the Lord like I never really had before. And then that's when my mom comes in the room, and the book talks more about it in detail, but my mom comes in our room and she hears me singing and playing, and she asks me if I would be willing to sing at my brother's funeral. And so that's kind of the moment that led into singing at the funeral. And then that moment at the funeral led to me making a YouTube video of the song we did, which was What a Beautiful Name by Hillsong. It's such a beautiful song.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. And then that video went viral. And so then my previous manager reached out to me. And then I started to work with a manager in Nashville and started to write songs and get plugged in. But there were so many miracles through that whole journey it was a quick process. He died in 2017 and I signed a record deal in 2019. So in 2 years, it was that quick of a journey. And it was really cool to see how the Lord kind of removed this desire out of my heart to work for NASA and replaced it with this desire to worship him. And I had no clue what it was going to look like, whether it was going to be a worship leader or what I'm doing now or something else. But I knew that he was bringing me on this journey. I just didn't know what it looked like yet. How he had this plan from the beginning of time. And even just my love for like going to Christian concerts as a kid. And like, I loved Lauren Daigle and I loved getting to go to Winter Jam and all these like little things I did. It was like God was preparing me for me to be on those stages and for me to, step into those places. So it's just been really cool to see how the Lord has done that. And the book goes into major detail and it's worth reading. Honestly, I always tell people it's worth reading the book just for that, because you're going to see how good God is and how many miracles he does. So,
I love that so much. And so many times I'm having a different conversation with people, right? Like I had this dream for 20 years and God, opened this door after this very long journey. And for you, it was kind of the opposite, right? You had a totally different dream and then God just redirected you so fast. And so in that, you told us that story like super fast because we don't have a whole lot of time, but what have you seen God show you in the midst of like such a quick redirection. Does that make sense? Like, because you pivoted pretty quick and pretty young, right?
Yeah.
As all of this continued to grow. Like, I just wonder what that process was like.
You know, I feel like someone said this to me a few months ago. I can't remember who it was, but they said, it seems like God had a very big plan for you, but needed it to happen quickly. And I thought about that and I was like, that's so true, because everything happened so quick. At the time, it was a blessing because it was a distraction from the loss of my brother, and Jacob passes away, and then all this exciting stuff happens, and I'm, moving to Nashville and graduating high school and signing a record deal, and all these incredible big things are happening. So it was really good because it was distracting me from the loss of my brother and really just kind of giving me and my family something to look forward to. But then after the fact, now that have been in it now for a couple of years, I look back and I'm like, God needed to do this quickly. Like, it's so cool how God moved so fast. And I feel like it's because he needed this message to come out to the world at this time. The world is such a broken place right now, especially in the past couple. And right when My Jesus came out was when everyone just needed major hope and a reminder of Jesus and his love and all of that. And so I think the Lord had big plans for me in terms of the timing of it all. It's been really cool to see how fast everything has happened, but it also feels like he's prepared me for this my whole life, if that makes sense. Like, even thinking back to moments in like 4th and 5th and 6th grade and like just being a little kid, how God was prepping me for this now, all these years later. It is really cool to see. And I touch more on that in the book too, of the detail of those moments and how he was preparing me for these moments now. But it's been so cool to see how quickly God's moved and how I think he needed this music to come out in this season of this world, in this moment in time. And so I'm honored that he chose to use me. And I feel like also because I didn't grow up wanting to do music, I didn't have these big dreams and desires. Like, I wasn't a kid that wanted to get a record deal. Like, I didn't care about any of it. And I love what I get to do, but it's not my identity and it's not something I've dreamed of my whole life. And so I think that's another thing that the Lord decided to use me in this way, because he knew that I didn't really want it and I wasn't wanting the fame or the glory out of it, but that I was literally just following his leading, And so that's also been something that's been cool to see.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that so much. When I was reading a little bit about the story behind My Jesus, so you co-wrote it with Matthew West and Jeff Pardo, right?
Yes.
Okay. What was that process like? Tell me about that day. Like, we talked a little bit about something about that name, but what was the process of My Jesus like as you wrote it?
Yeah. So, it was a really cool day. So I actually had come in with that title from my journals. I had, right after my brother passed away, I'd started to journal and basically would write down the day's date. And then I would write down at the end of the day that God got me through another day. I wanted to prove to myself I could survive the tragedy of losing my brother and that I would get through it and all of that. So I started journaling. And then after, my brother passed away, and then years later, as I started writing songs, I wanted to just kind of go back through my journals and just look at what God did in the past couple of years. So I did. And that's when I did not notice it until then, but I had always written My Jesus. I had never referred to God as any other name. So I never said God, Jesus, Lord, anything. It was always My Jesus. And I remember having this moment of just like asking God, why is it, Lord, that I've only ever written My Jesus? And I remember him speaking to me and saying this, that it's because it's the truth. You are mine and I am yours. And we have a personal relationship with each other. And I remember that moment just kind of like being such a big moment for me and realizing there was something to that title. So I took it into the writing room. I never know if we're going to write the song idea that I bring in. But what was cool is that Matthew West had that same song idea, and so did Jeff Pardo. And we had never written together before, the three of us, and they did not know me on a personal level at all. We were just pretty much strangers going into a room together, and we all had the same concept idea. So that was a moment where I was like, God's definitely going to do something today. And I didn't realize it was going to be such a big song, but in the moment I knew that the Lord was going to do something through just the fact that we all had the same concept coming into the write, because that never happens. So that was a really, really amazing time. And then we left the write after writing No Place Like Home as well. And then we left the write, and it was just like, it was such a beautiful moment. I remember being in my car and calling my mom and having this gut feeling that this song was going to impact people, but I didn't realize the magnitude in which it did so. I just thought maybe it would reach a few people, and that would be worth it. But it's so cool to see now what God's done through that song.
That's incredible. I was talking about a week ago, and we were talking about how we were going to have this conversation and how excited I was to get to know you. And she just listed off 3 or 4 little girls in her life who are like her sister's daughter and a couple other people who just love that song. And so did a couple of other people that I mentioned it to. And so it's so cool not only to see the magnitude of what my Jesus has done, but also like the multi-generational impact that this song has had, so cool. You know, like it's just the coolest. So I just love what God has done. So, you know, as I was reading a little bit more about the book, one of the things that you talk about, and we've touched on this in the conversation, is how, you know, whatever we're feeling, whatever we're facing, that God can handle it, right? Like that's been true and has proven true in your life. The tears, the screams, the questions, the doubts. And, you know, somebody may be coming to this conversation today, walking through a very similar season to what you walked through with your brother. I just wonder, like, what encouragement would you give them today, right in the pit of that hardship?
Yeah, I would first just say, you know, I'm so sorry for your loss. And, I realized this early on that no one was designed to go through loss and suffering. God designed us for the garden, and God designed us to be in no sin and complete peace and with each other in community. And what God's original design was for this world is very different than what it is now. And because of Adam and Eve sinning, and because of the world, you know, falling and what's happened now, it's different, but still our chemical makeup in the way that God designed us was not to have to go through loss. And so when something happens tragic in your life, it's almost like it's the weirdest feeling because it's not what's supposed to happen, especially if you're losing someone at a young age. You know, when it's not the natural pattern of life, like my brother passing away at 23 years old, that's not natural. My parents shouldn't have had to bury their own son. I shouldn't have had to bury my brother that young. You know, there's things that happen in life that are not, I guess people would say, are not fair, but that it's part of God's bigger plan. And so I'd first just say that, like, there's so much freedom knowing that God has a bigger plan in this, and it takes the weight off of the questions. Like, I would sit and question the Lord, like, why God, why Jacob, why so young, why our family, like, why? And it was always the Lord would always gently remind me that he has a bigger plan in store. And now I see it. It's my music. It's what God's doing in my life. That's the bigger plan. And Jacob had to go in order for that to happen. And so there's a lot there that can get, you know, frustrating and sad. But first off, realize that God has a bigger plan, and God is so close to the brokenhearted. And if you put your trust in him during this hard season, especially, you know, in these first moments, if you've just recently lost a loved one, there's so much importance in worshiping God through your suffering and putting your trust in him right now, not 5 years later when you feel better or you feel more healed. But in these first few moments, the importance of like placing your trust in him it's just incredible, because you're going to go on this journey with the Lord, and he's going to walk you through each and every moment. And doing it by yourself is not going to get you anywhere. And I had to realize that. I had to realize, like, am I going to trust God, or am I going to do this by myself? So trust the Lord, lean on him. He's going to comfort you in ways that you don't even comprehend now, but you'll see it, and you'll realize that God is just that good. He gives you exactly what you need. And really just take it day by day. I feel like for me, in those first few moments, it was all I could do just to drink water, to eat food. And now I look back and I like realize how I was able to take it day by day. We're not supposed to worry about tomorrow. And so keeping it day by day, focusing on the Lord, waking up in the morning, and realizing that all you can do is get through this day, and letting the Lord heal you and be your healer and your comforter. And so, but yeah, back to it. It's like, we're not designed for suffering. And I had to realize that, you know, I had to have that moment of like, we're not designed for this. But God is going to give all that we need. He's going to give us everything we need. He's going to give you everything you need to get through this tragedy. So the Lord has everything you could ever need and ever will need in him, and will supply that for you. But it's all about, I realized it's just all about trusting him and placing your full surrender to him, like fully surrendering
Yes.
everything. And that's where I found the most healing and comfort for me during that time.
Yes. Well, that's so good. And I think so many times, at least for me, I will let my circumstances dictate the goodness of God. And that's so backwards,
Yeah.
right? And just remembering and going into a hard season with, no, this is the character of my God in the midst of this hard thing that I was not designed to carry, but he can. So that's so powerful. I love that so much. I am so excited to ask you one more question that I ask all the guests that come on Radical Radiance. The heart behind the show really is to walk alongside women and have conversations that will point us to the truth and seeing how we can really radiate the heart of Christ on a deeper level and what that looks like. And so the question I love asking is, Anne, what about Jesus makes you radiant?
I love that. Honestly, I think his grace is probably the biggest thing for me. Looking at my life and seeing every mistake I've ever made and every moment that I fell short, and every moment that I let someone down or lied or whatever, and all those moments. But then seeing how God has always forgiven me and had so much grace for me, and he's taken away my shame and my guilt and everything and placed just such a peace over me. I think that's something that every day I wake up remembering that. And every day I wake up really being reminded of what God's done in my life and how he's forgiven me. And so that always makes me radiant walking through life, knowing that I am forgiven, that I'm set free, and that I can live in eternity with Jesus because of his grace and because of what he did on the cross.
That's so beautiful. Well, I am so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for what God is doing through you. And I'm so excited about this book. Listeners can go grab My Jesus wherever books are sold. And I'm so excited for us to all get our hands on it. And again, I just want to say how thankful I am to get to know you. I've just loved our time together. So thank you for being with me.
Thanks so much for having me. It was so good to talk to you.